Week 9 was crazy in the NFL. Tons of upsets. We want to see how everything shakes down on Bobby's power rankings. Bobby, I got to say, your power rankings are beginning to be like the Madden curse. As soon as you move a team up, they lose. And they lose to a team that's much worse than them. I mean, the Rams, you move them up to number 1, they lose to Tennessee. You move the Bills up to number 2, they lose to the Jaguars. Crazy. You take the Cleveland Browns out of your top 10, and they go ahead and demolish the Bengals. The Dallas Cowboys, you move them up, they go ahead and lose to your Denver Broncos. I mean, what a crazy week it was. Let's see how it all shakes down, though, for you. Which teams move up? Which teams move down? Why don't you give it to us right now?
It was as wacky a weekend as we've seen, and there's always this one weekend. But there were some adjustments. So here's my power rankings. Still at the 10 spot. I'm going to keep Vegas. Vegas is going to stay in the 10, although there are a few teams vying for that spot. The aforementioned Cleveland Browns, which I debated putting back in because I prematurely took them out. Number 9, I'm keeping the Los Angeles Chargers. Very impressive win going to Philadelphia. Number 8, finally cracking the top 10 and blowing me away. The Tennessee Titans, sitting at, I believe, 7-2, who lose Derrick Henry and then go out and go on the road and dominate. Looked big, fast, strong. I was super impressed with Tennessee. They're finally in the top 10. Number 7, Dallas Cowboys. That was such a bad spot against the Broncos. Broncos were firing on all cylinders. You're allowed to lose one. They finally lost one against the spread, so Dallas is going to stay at 7. 6, Baltimore, staying at number 6. Believe they were on a bye. Can't really drop a team on a bye.
No, they beat Minnesota in overtime.
There we go. Right. Okay. Correct. They beat Minnesota in overtime. Either way, staying at the 6th spot. Number 5, Green Bay Packers. Maybe the most impressive loss of the weekend. Almost taking down the Chiefs with a guy who probably couldn't hit the broadside of a barn throwing a football. Almost still squeak out the upset, but don't we see this now with Seattle basically elevating? Now we saw Green Bay elevating. Of course, they had to cover that 7-point spread, keep Vegas afloat. Number 4, dropping, are the Buffalo Bills. You got to penalize a team for losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. There has to be some sort of punishment. So they go down to the 4th spot, although I still think they are the best team in the AFC. Number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Still staying at the 3 spot from last week. Number 2, dropping a spot, the LA Rams. Just did not look that good. They drop a spot for me. And the number 1 team in the league, the the Arizona Cardinals, going up to number 1. Such an impressive win on the road in San Francisco. Backup quarterback, no Kyler, tons of injuries. They still get it done. Arizona is finally into that number 1 spot.
Wow. And it only took 9 weeks.
Finally.
Okay. Frankie, you want to take it here, or you want me to break it down a little bit?
Where's Buffalo?
4.
I don't know. I was listening for Kansas City, but I didn't hear it. That must have been a mistake, Rob? Like that was the one omission, right?
I think there are a few, to be honest with you. I think Cleveland had a chance. I think New England has a chance, although I didn't want to put New England in because 2 of their wins are against the Jets, so they don't kind of really count. But they are trending towards this list. And I think we finally saw Cincinnati being exposed and Cleveland being the better team in that North Division. But KC, that was such an ugly win. The fact that Jordan Love almost beat you at home, I had to demote them out of the top 10. And Tennessee, I believe, deserves to be in there. Tennessee's a more complete team than Kansas City right now.
No, fair enough. I think the only other thing I had an issue with in that thing was something Rob said about the Chargers going into Philadelphia with an impressive win over Philadelphia. There's nothing really impressive beating Philadelphia. So I don't know if you find it impressive, okay, but I don't know, man. Chargers are for some reason Justin Herbert isn't he's really off and on with these weeks. So and their run defense is awful, just awful. So that might be a team where I think may fall out of your favor soon. But that's just a little prediction. A little prediction.
I like the analysis, Frankie. Their run defense is awful, but they went to Philadelphia against a team that can run the football and won a game where they were a short home or a short road favorite. So always a tough spot to win as a short road favorite. But they are close. They are teetering. Them in Vegas are in kind of that Kansas City, Cleveland, New England kind of group.
Pittsburgh.
No, not gonna say Pittsburgh. Not gonna say New Orleans. No, no Fugazis. Oh, do you want to credit Pittsburgh for that wonderful win against Chicago, Joe?
No, do you want to talk about this? Because
I would love to, because in the last 3 weeks they've got to play Geno Smith, and now they basically, along with the referees, played the Chicago Bears on Monday. So
yeah, see, last week the Tampa Bay Buccaneers held the Bears to what? 3 points. So I thought that the Steelers defense was going to do something similar to that, but no, not even close. Fields actually looked, as the game went on, he looked like he was getting better and better. Yeah, the Steelers are lucky to win that game. The refs were atrocious, and that taunting penalty was. This is the no fun league, man. It's the no fun league. I don't know what. This is a guy who they called that penalty on. I think it was Cassius Marks, I think his name was. Gets called up from the practice squad, makes the biggest play of the game, and think you're going to call that a taunting penalty on him. I don't know. I felt bad for the Bears. This is coming from a Steelers fan, so.
You know what's pretty ironic about this? You remember how we used to talk about a couple of other pods. We used to talk about how we always looked at the NFL for that measuring stick for officiating, where it doesn't matter what the game script is, they're calling it, as is. And now we're calling it such a joke, where even maybe the NHL is like starting to look as good as start looking good versus what the NFL just did. With this one rule change, it's completely killed the flow of the game. The momentum of teams. Like you're right. I can honestly see this in a Super Bowl game, and this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the game. We're not talking about the MVP. We're talking about a stupid taunting call that can cost a team, a championship.
Yeah, and this game was not just a taunting call. There were some penalties that the Bears have to take ownership of, like lining up offside and it happened like 3 times in the game. That can't happen. That cannot happen. Even I know how to not line up offside, and I've never played a game of football in my life. So they got to clean that up. But then there was another play earlier in the game where they caught a touchdown pass, and there was like a phantom call that they took the penalty. They took the touchdown away from the Bears. So just brutal all the way around.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I want to talk about in that game, and Joe, I don't know, being a fan, I don't know if you noticed this, but Chicago, who basically has first and goal from the 7, they're down by 6 with 1:47. They only have 1 timeout, which means that was the last drive for them. If they got stopped, if something had happened, the game was over. They weren't going to be able to get the ball back. Yet they threw the ball on first down, which I thought was alarming. I thought they were going to run the ball on first down, and if they don't get in, maybe they get to the 3-yard line, 2-yard line, and the clock starts moving. I thought that was awful clock management. I'm not surprised that it was Matt Nagy, because he isn't just proven time after time he's an awful coach. But I thought, like, great that they scored. I know you got to score, but when they scored, I said, this is way too much time. And this is a spot where Ben and the Steelers kind of make their money, where it's just improvised football. It's 7-on-7, throw the ball, and Ben did his thing. I thought it was a huge mistake by Chicago. You as a Pittsburgh fan probably loved it, but were you thinking the same thing in that spot?
Oh yeah, and when I saw that we had 1:45 left with a timeout, like, I wasn't worried. And all we had to do was get into field goal range.
Yeah.
We've seen Ben do it time and time again. I know he's much older and less effective now, but I was very, very confident that he'd make that happen. We've spoken too much about the Steelers already, probably, for you. But so again, they're not in the top 10 this week. You sure?
I do not. You told me to take Cleveland out, and you were clearly wrong about that last week.
Yeah.
What else do you have? Any problems with my Arizona going to 1, Rams going to 2?
To be honest, I actually like your list a lot this week. I mean, there's not too much to argue with, right? the Titans, I mean, how can you argue that they lose their best player, probably the best player in football, and they just keep chugging along and they defeat a really, really, really good team. The Cardinals, they got the best record, so they should be at one. You know, you are what your record says you are. And the Bills, dropping the Bills, like you said it perfectly. There's got to be some sort of penalty for losing against the Jags, especially in that fashion, like
Oh my God.
9-6.
I
Brutal football game to watch.
I really moved the Rams out of the one spot. Sorry, Frank, before you go. I don't trust Matt Stafford. He played as bad as can be, and I'm starting to wonder. I heard all this time about, hey, he's got to go to a good team. I still don't know if I trust Matt Stafford. That's part of the reason why they came out of my one spot.
I think I still do. I'm not
I
worried
think
about
he's
it. I
going to
think it
win
was
the
one
MVP.
game. Yeah, it's one game.
Oof.
They didn't have it. If it ends up being more of a consistent thing, then maybe you could say that. But this guy's an MVP candidate so far this season. So, you know, he has one bad game and all of a sudden you can't trust him.
It's just a
And I know that
decision.
better than anybody. He's on my fantasy team.
There you go.
I just had one quick question. Yes or no answer. If the Broncos beat the Eagles this week, do they make your top 10?
No, not
Really?
even close. Teddy Bridgewater. If you look at this list again, it's mostly the best quarterbacks in the league. So I believe you need to have a good quarterback to be in this list, basically, unless you are like Tennessee, basically, who has a pretty good roster up and down. Speaking of Tennessee, can we name the teams that they've beaten? Because this has got to be the most impressive list, and I'm talking within the last 5 weeks. They've beaten Buffalo, who's the 4 spot for me. They've beaten the Rams, who are the second best team. Who am I missing? Baltimore? Did they beat Baltimore at the 6?
Indy twice.
KC? Did they beat KC? I believe
Yes, they did.
they've had some super impressive wins. They are the only team on this list that I see that kind of their quarterback is not great, but's in there. But I think it's just such a quarterback league that if you don't have a quarterback, like my Broncos don't, where are you going? You're just kind of your tires are spinning until you get a quarterback, in my opinion.
I would have to agree there. All right. Should be another interesting weekend of football. We'll see how it all shakes out this weekend and on Bobby's Power Rankings next week. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Like, share, subscribe.